Hi everyone, this is Charlotte Pierce with the Independent Publishers of New England and Pierce Press. I'm the host of Indie Office Hours, and we have generally have a theme. We come on every week at 12. We have a theme, and then we have your questions. We will take almost any question about independent publishing. I just wanted to alert people, and I'll say this at the end too, but we have the IPNE.org, IPNE.org is Independent Publishers of New England. We have some deadlines coming up to exhibit with our fall book shows, New England Independent Booksellers, New England Library Association, and Boston Book Festival. And then our catalog deadline is this week too. So if you're planning on getting in on those, you don't have to be in New England, but those deadlines are this week, and it's IPNE.org. So you can see it in my my name there at the bottom of the screen. But I'm really excited it's always a pleasure to talk to Larry, who I've known for 30 years. And
I thought we agreed not to discuss that.
Oh, sure. Sorry. No, we're barely that old anyway. But Larry's out in Seattle and has been out in Massachusetts as well, because we met at the Radcliffe Publishing course. And he's an author and a massage therapist. He'll tell you a little bit about his book Scared Sitless at sitless.com. And we also have Laura B. Williams, and she and I work together. She's the co-host of this show, Indie Office Hours, and also has the Writing Biz show of her own, live streaming show, and your business name is also the Writing Biz. Is that correct, Laura?
Well, the business is Good Inklings.
Good Inklings, and then yeah. So we'll kind of toss it around here a little bit. But Larry, do you want to just introduce yourself and cover anything that I haven't covered, and then we can talk about Amazon.
I do like to explain. It's fun to explain the link between my publishing career and my massage career, because back shortly after I met Charlotte, I had a high-stress job in New York City in the late 80s, and my back went out, and so that culminated in a 10-year-long process of medical self-care and research and stuff. But anyhow, I ended up in massage school, and here I am. But I've always kept my ear to the ground in the publishing world. I've been a publishing maven since the publishing course, and then all that sort of comes together with this project I'm working on now, the Scared Sitless book. And
so that's about this whole standing desk movement and stuff,
well, it
right?
is. That's a big part of it. It's quickly the origins of the book. It comes out of my massage practice about 7 years ago, 2007. I began researching or just kind of writing stuff to help my office worker clients, many of whom work at Amazon, by the way. So this story
of course, out there in Seattle.
I'm literally adjacent to the Amazon campus, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But so it started with me doing trying to help my clients more with their physical fitness at work, helping them with ergonomics, self-assessment, with posture education, with ideas about exercises they can do. And in fact, I'm also a certified personal trainer. I got to the point where I was so interested in exercise that I did that as well. And then,
I'm really sorry we didn't live in the same town when you were getting into all that stuff.
Well, I'm also, it's funny, what's really funny, Charlotte, is I'm also into rowing. I'm kind of on hiatus right now, God. But I know you're a rower too. Yeah. And yeah. So that's very some eerie parallels here from coast to coast.
I'm just showing your website. I just thought it was good to, and so I love the site. I was noodling around on it earlier, and it's nice and clean. Is it WordPress?
It's a WordPress site using the just a real simple variation on the Genesis framework. Oh, and that video, I gotta say, publishing can be a lot of fun, and creating that video trailer was way too much fun.
I know. It's like it's a black hole of time,
Exactly. Yeah. So anyhow, so that's my story of how I got here and how I'm in the publishing world. Oh, that right there, by the way, you're on the. I just yesterday launched the little campaign to try to get.
I like that.
I'm going to donate $1 for every pre-order of the book to Save the Children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, the book's also available. I haven't, and this is more about, well, you know, kind of on a publishing note. I also used this outfit called Lean Hub. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, you were
Lean
talking
Hub,
about that last time.
yeah, they let you share in-process ebooks with your readers, and so I've got some feedback as I've gone along, and I have, anyhow. So at that they also, that's kind of where I got the idea, because they have a system that lets you allocate a portion of your royalties to a charity. So I'm giving 20% of my royalty there to Oxfam. So anyhow, but so that's my. You know, and I'm actually, the other thing about all this is that I'm having a whole lot of fun getting back into publishing.
Yeah. Now you can do it your way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been a real crash course the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years as I've embarked on this. And, you know, believe me, I'm paying attention to Amazon, and I'm paying attention to that Amazon Hachette dispute. Because
so as you work on these Amazon people, do you get information about the Hachette controversy?
Okay, well, that gets to the first thing about Amazon, is that they are notoriously, and maybe justifiably, but they don't talk about nothing. I mean, I get little snippets here and there. I'll tell you, though, the main conversation I've had with the Amazon guys, and I've had the same conversation 20 or 30 times, you know, okay, let me back up just a little bit from that. 20 years ago, almost, in that, I don't know if you remember that June '95 Wall Street Journal cover story about Amazon. I had just left Seattle. I was kind of pursuing the tech end of publishing down in Eugene in the Bay Area. And I was like, oh, cool, back in Seattle, there's this guy doing technology and books. I should go back there. And then I realized immediately, I thought, no, he's a merchant, and I'm a publisher.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And to this day, I think they're constrained by that. I mean, well, not constrained. Obviously, they do a lot of things, and they do them extremely well. But their publishing operation is not, it's not real publishing, to my mind, most of their activities. I mean, they have publishing people they've hired, and they have publishing activities they do there. But mostly what they do is they provide production and distribution. You know, that they have you, you know, a really slick way to quickly and easily share a manuscript in a Kindle or CreateSpace book format. But anyhow, so the same conversation I've had with these guys, and I say guys because, well, I have 2 women who are clients who work at Amazon, but it's almost all guys, so I may slip into that usage.
That's okay. We'll forgive you.
Okay, thanks. And why
don't we just kind of outline the issue, okay, yeah, since we've advertised this? What's going on? What is the controversy, and who's strong-arming who, and who's winning the media war?
Yeah, so right now, I think, you know, it's interesting. In old media, I think Hachette and the publishers are winning the discussion. You know, that, like, because it's like a classic, it appears to be a classic case of a, you know, a monopolistic or monopolistic, you know, giant coming in and taking over existing terrain. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the story, though. And I have, you know, while I have, like, you know, you and I go way back in publishing, and I have a lot of friends in the traditional publishing world, and I have a lot of respect and empathy and everything for that community. On the other hand, so anyhow, so in terms of the media battle, I think they have the upper hand. But in terms of the
mechanics of it,
the mechanics, the real politic that underlies it. You know, one of the ways that I am so torn by this whole thing, because Amazon is kind of ripping to shreds 2 things I love: independent publishing and independent bookselling. But
they'll tell you that they're increasing sales for people and yielding a greater sales range.
No, and exactly, there's that. That they, and but the other side of it is that they are genuinely focused on the customer. That everybody in that organization gets that. And everybody, that's just how they operate. So for a reader, it's great. But for a publisher, not so much, because. So
tell us what they're actually doing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
okay.
They were controlling the price that.
Well, that's where it gets into that. So
Hachette wanted to set a certain price, a high price.
Set their own prices, and Amazon unlike, remember, like, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, the Apple Store and the publishers got busted for colluding on price fixing, and that was clearly collusion, and they wanted to control pricing. Amazon does it more subtly, or not subtly, they do it differently. They're just saying, like, hey, we know these customers, we know what they want, we know what
we know that they're going to buy
things.
20,000 books at 99 cents and 10 books at $9.99.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then so they have their ideas about how they want pricing to be. So they structure their royalties to reflect that. So if you price a book under $2.99, you get 35%. If you're in that $2.99 to $9.99, you get 70%. Over $9.99, you don't get. You only get 35% again. Which so given that, that's just sort of like how they operate. And I think I'm not, a business law expert or anything, or I'm not like, I don't have, apparently all that's like illegal and whether, and ethical, and it's just their way of doing business. But they are huge. It's like, I think they sell more than half the books in the country now. And you would hope that there'd be more, scrutiny or some kind of opportunity for other input into that than just Amazon. But they are a business and they can operate however they want. That's
yeah. So the Hachette. I mean, who else is involved? Are there other traditional publishing houses? I know that the authors kind of banded together and put out.
I don't exactly. Well, that's an interesting. Did you see this story? It just came out maybe Sunday in the New York Times about. I didn't even know about this. I don't think many people knew about it. That Amazon has for like 4 or 5 years now been hosting a writer's retreat in Santa Fe with like this super deluxe, the kind of thing that like CEOs do on junkets, like just high-end fashion gift bags and
this
just
is Amazon who's doing this?
Amazon. So the way it was, Jeff Bezos and Amazon would host like a writer's retreat in Santa Fe. And I don't know how many people go. I just kind of skimmed the story last night, but it was totally intriguing, and it totally makes sense if you're trying to, bring the authors around to your side, because that's another interesting dynamic, is that this whole dispute it's kind of, so it's Amazon versus Hachette, but it's Hachette's authors who are suffering the most because of Hachette's wanting to do things their way. And then I think there's a little bit of Hachette.
But the argument I heard was that the authors signed their rights away to Hachette, and are getting, they've given up their birthright to their publisher, and they're filthy rich anyway.
Well, that's right, and that's that's the other thing, and I haven't delved deeply enough into this to speak really knowledgeably about it, but most of the authors we've heard from are like the folks who are getting 6- and 7-figure advances, and they're not like typical, book authors. These are the creme de la creme. Oh yeah, that's the article. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole thing about the discussion. It's where you're standing, because if you're standing as a consumer, of course, it would benefit for Amazon to win this because you would pay lower prices. If you're standing as a large publisher, then you don't want it. And the authors kind of move around between all three of those stands. It just depends on, and like James Patterson, he was at, let me look at it real quick so I can tell you for sure. Excuse me. He was at the Book Expo America, and he was, had some really strong words for Hachette against Amazon. Of course, he's a Hachette author too, so I mean that makes a difference. But one of the things that Amazon seems to be doing is that they are restricting the ability to purchase from Hachette authors.
Oh yeah, the article here just says that Patterson was at that retreat.
Yeah, and he's saying, well, that kind of, just kind of pushes you to go to more of the indie bookstores, your local bookstores, to buy his books, which is fine with him. But there's so many levels to this discussion that I really think it's one of those things you kind of have to educate yourself on if it's an important important discussion to you.
Yeah, I mean no independent publisher is not going to go to Amazon. I mean, is
right.
that...
Yeah, you kind of have to go there. The other thing about, and this kind of goes back to what Laura was just talking about, is like we've had this battle already. You know, when paperbacks were introduced, when Penguin started the whole paperback thing in the, I don't know, when was that, the 30s or something?
That was going to be the end of hardcover, you know,
Exactly.
literary excellence.
Yeah, and anyhow, that you know, so we've kind of covered this terrain before, and authors quickly saw that they could make a lot more money selling 20,000 copies of a mass market thing than 1,000 copies of a hardcover thing. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something maybe analogous going on here. I mean, the thing that's different is that one of the main things that's different now is the astonishing volume of stuff, you know, and so the marketing challenges are different for, you know, whether you're a mass market publisher, an indie publisher, whatever. Just getting people's attention is so difficult now. But I think the underlying dynamics are very similar to that old paperback argument.
I agree. The evolution of the accessibility, and I mean, it's just all these discussions and cases and everything are just the fallout from that. I mean, eventually they'll come up, you know, with a solution that's not going to make everybody happy, just like anything else. But
no, I think, Laura, I totally agree, and I think that we're going to see a similar shakeout. I mean, we're all kind of old enough to remember when desktop publishing was introduced, and the flurry of like god awful, you know, crap with, you know, fonts all over the place and stupid
unreadable
content.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing that's different now, and again, we have mechanisms, we have social media, we have search engines, we have you know, better consumer behavior patterns. I think that the cream will more quickly rise to the top, I think, than maybe it did when desktop publishing was introduced. You know, it took a while for you know, to get rid of like Comic Sans headlines and, you know, all that.
Yeah, I mean, the way I feel about it, I'm not really attracted to books because they're 99 cents or $2.99.
Right.
I'm attracted. I don't want to spend my time doing anything unless I really love it, or I'm a big fan of the author or something, or it's been recommended to me by someone. So reviews mean a whole lot to me.
Right, and I think that's kind of what I was hinting at when I just talked about the consumer behavior. You know, like, you know, this oh shoot, I should have sent you guys this before this, but Monica Guzman, a local newspaper columnist, just did a piece on Sunday in the Seattle Times about the process. What's that called? Showrooming. When you go in to a bookstore and you take a picture of a book cover and you go to Amazon. Well, she was writing about, you know, there's now reverse showrooming. That you go to Amazon, do your research, figure out which book you want to buy, and then you go to your local bookseller.
That's what I do. I put together a wish list. I take it to the book rack down the street, and he orders those things for me. They're in the next day or the 2 days later, and he matches the price. Yeah.
Did either of you read? I just saw a headline the other day, and I didn't get a chance to look at it, but about the sort of a renaissance in independent bookselling. That that indie booksellers appear to be making a little bit of a comeback, and I sure hope that's a true trend, and that exact dynamic could be part of it.
Well, I'm going to the New England Independent Booksellers, so I'll try and get some information. You know,
thanks. There it is.
Yeah. So.
You know, also too, the thing. This is how I think about it. And like I said, I'm certainly no expert on any of these subjects, but I think that the big publishers' biggest problem is indie publishers that are doing it well, like Charlotte and other indie publishers, and I think that's what the real push is against Amazon, is to try to limit that type of accessibility. And I think it's a shame, because an author, I would rather work with an indie publisher because I get that level of service that I wouldn't necessarily get with a big publisher. You know, I'd be lost in the fray, and who's to say that what I'm interested in publishing, they would be interested in taking on anyways. So I mean, it's just it's opening up doors. I don't think that they are prepared enough.
And also the big publishers, they're working on a business model that's not so easy to change. You know, They have to get those revenues in. You remember, Larry, the publishing course we had to do, the cost, you know, the budget.
Oh, I can still do those P&Ls in my head.
and they, you know, that and they have that staff, you know, and they have to charge that. They are freaking out because they're of the thought
Exactly.
of undercutting
That's
that price.
completely understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, and that's a real. I mean, it's tragic, but it's not. You know, it's still, you know, their responsibility as big, allegedly well-managed companies is to deal with exactly this kind of thing. That, like, if you're going to be a business in the 21st century, you better be ready for change. You know, so that's where my sympathy and empathy end. Is if top management can't cope with these obvious trends, then, you know.
Yeah, and I think my feeling is that pitting it out as a struggle, Amazon never brought it up, really. They just did it, you know. And then there was this hue and cry, is what I understand. But you know, if they just did what you said, you know, adapt, figure out a strategy for getting ahead of that tactic. You know,
Did you see
and the other, you know, in fairness to them, you know, there's a lot of moving parts in that. You know, just the fact, that the traditional whole setup involves returns, you know, like, constrains them in so many ways. You know, and Amazon looked at that and thought, boy, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of, and they don't accept returns on anything.
And I put with Lightning Source, and I elected not to take returns. You know, that would kill me. I just, you know, I'd rather get less money per book than take returns.
Well, I wonder if it would kill you. I wonder. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Amazon to me has always been based on not how I can do it better, but how I can do it differently, and that's the key. I mean, and it doesn't matter whether it's a publisher or a merchant. You have to start thinking differently and reinvent yourself to fit that. They are big. They're not going to go away. It's not going to, you know, it's not going to stop. Now, I read this morning that they're moving into publishing crowdfunding. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
Oh, Amazon is?
Was it or is it crowdsourcing? Because I saw a thing yesterday.
Oh, see, I want to know about
David,
that.
who I think is watching this, shared with me an article about how they're going to do sort of a crowdsourced manuscript vetting thing. Pay like indie authors, you know, $1,500 advance to do, you know, to get exclusive placement in. I can't remember the name of the program, but I wouldn't doubt if they were doing crowdfunding too. That's, I mean. Well,
it's kind of, I may have misworded it, but yeah, that's what I meant. They were sitting there and they were saying, you know, that you would issue so many pages to get people interested, and based on that response, they would decide whether to publish the work.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and they're financing it. They're like, if there's a response, certain level of response, then they would finance it.
Tie in well to my show tomorrow night, so I'm interested.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that, you guys? Yeah. You know, an interesting sidelight on that is that that's exactly the dynamic we were just talking about. That is a big guy, big boy stealing a practice from a little guy, I think, or adapting, because there's a local outfit here called Book Trope. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, well, one of our authors at IPNE has done her stuff with Book Trope.
But that's one of the hallmarks of the Book Trope model, is that idea of crowd vetting manuscripts and letting things rise to the top. So we're already, I mean, Amazon's been around 20 years, you know, so they're already mature, and they're probably, even though they are genuinely innovative, unlike some tech giants, they you know, they still have to go out. I'm sure they're still keeping their eye on the terrain and adopting, you know, what emerges best practices other places.
And Larry, in your travels, do you see any traditional publishers that are doing really innovative things and you know, starting to get the agility that they need?
Well, I think the classic one would be O'Reilly, you know, the computer book publisher, because they, you know, in terms of, like, there's this thing in the tech world and the startup world.
Tim O'Reilly, right?
Tim O'Reilly, yeah. But there's this thing of getting it, you know, like getting how the new world operates, like Wired magazine.
Well, I think they publish everything public domain or something like that, don't they?
No, I don't know. I think they still have traditional copyright protection, but they do a lot, and I haven't, you know, and I've got to admit, I've had my focus has been on, I've had my head down just on getting my manuscript done, and then looking from the solo infopreneur, low level publishing model. And so I'm aware though that outfits like O'Reilly are among the most progressive, and in like, I'm sure that their deals with their authors, the way they price stuff,
It
all
might be
those kinds of
Creative
things.
Commons rather than public domain. I'm pretty sure
Right.
they
Yeah.
do something.
That's brilliant. Lawrence Lessig came up with a great model there that kind of tiered release of rights. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get him on sometime if I can stalk him and track him down.
He's a good guy. He's been here for Eric Liu's Citizen University and has done some workshops. If you can get him, he's great. Yeah.
Oh, Matthew's got a question here.
Yeah, he asked, what I remember very quickly glancing at it is that Hachette's percentage on Amazon sales was high, maybe higher than it needed to be. Do you know? That's his question.
I don't know that. And I assume he means high, like that they took a bigger cut than they would have like from a bookstore royalty or something. I'm not sure.
Because they have those authors, or?
Yeah. And I don't know, like I don't know. That's something if I've read it, I don't remember the details.
Well, he was also asking about the contract, and I think that's the thing, is that the details have not been released. I mean, the actual details of what this is about, all of it really, honestly, is speculation. It's not concrete facts, because the details of the whole thing between Amazon and Hachette aren't public yet. I mean, we can make assumptions, but...
No, that's right. And in fact, that's another hallmark of Amazon. Like I was talking about earlier, they don't talk about anything. But Hachette has not been forthcoming either. So, I think we're just kind of left out here. I mean, half of what we're saying could be completely wrong. I think it's easy. You can safely infer a lot of the actual facts from like the fact that you can't order, J.K. Rowling's new book right off the bat because Amazon doesn't like Hachette and says it takes 3 to 5 weeks to deliver it. You can kind of see the results of that. But in terms of the actual details and like getting a hold of an author's contract, I know that's another path I haven't gone down that much. Is I know a lot of these authors are getting much more public. Like I think attendance at that Santa Fe retreat was much lower this year, or a lot of people who've been in the past didn't go, partly because they want to have the freedom to talk about it.
Yeah, there was a quote from the piece on Patterson. He spoke at last year's Campfire event and was not invited back this year and told the Times he wouldn't have gone even if he were on the guest list. He ripped into Amazon earlier this year over its tactics in the publishing business. That's a quote from the piece.
He really, let me just tell you one of the things he said that I noticed. He said, if the world of books is going to change to ebooks, so be it. But I think it's essential that someone steps up and takes responsibility for the future of American literature and the part it plays in our culture. Right now, bookstores, libraries, authors, and books themselves are caught in the crossfire of an economic war. If this is a new American way, then maybe it has to be changed by law if necessary, immediately, if not sooner. But
well, that's why I think people like librarians are really helpful. I love librarians.
Yeah. Did you read the Clay Shirky piece that I shared the other day?
Yes, I think I did.
Because his point, basically, Laura, what you were just saying, that Patterson's point, Shirky takes pretty much the opposite position, that you can make that an awful lot of the publisher's position is based on this sort of old-fashioned East Coast elite gatekeeper mentality. That's like, oh my God, if anybody can publish, who will be vetting this? Who will, how? You can't have. I think he uses this analogy of like, the East Coast elite, and I'm way oversimplifying here, and I apologize to my friends who graduated from Princeton and Harvard and everyone. But but he uses the analogy of like, I think I'm getting this right, that old school publishers want book publishing to be like an opera production, this vast, majestic thing, and it comes more
together
like
in some kind of epiphany. Well, I think what I like about it is this. I mean, the kind of accessibility to lots of stuff is it gives the power to the individual. And
that's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing that Shirky talks about in that essay, he talks about. It used to be that the scarcity of good books in podunk was like you were just kind of being reasonable and rational and accepting of the fact that it was hard to ship things there. He said, you don't have that excuse now. that like anybody, that's kind of the mission of Amazon, to let anybody anywhere on the planet buy anything they want. And it's like, great, if you're a book publisher, we should be, I would think that authors and publishers would celebrate that part of your charter.
Well, I tend not to personalize it all the time, but I don't buy a book because it smells good or because I can run my fingers over the little nubbins of the type and, think about the long literary tradition that's gone into it. I read it for the words, for the content, and maybe the images, and that's one thing that ebooks don't do as well right now. But so we are running out of time. But do either of you have a burning desire to make another comment?
I would just want to ask both of you individually, how do you want to see, or how do you think this is going to shake out?
I would love to see. I don't know how this could manifest, but I think one of the big potential benefits of just the internet and the web and online community and stuff in general is that if we can just take all these people to task, that if we can, as readers and as independent publishers and as independent booksellers and as concerned citizens and as business owners, whatever your role, to just figure out a way amongst your peeps to take all these guys to task, to go to, because Amazon, I'll admit, I'm not cowering in fear, but I sure pay attention to how they rate in what I'm, in my business decisions. But maybe I'd have a little more confidence about doing things a little differently if I could get together with 5,000 other authors and independent publishers and do that. So that would be my thing, is let's, regardless of, because this is just like two titans fighting way up above our heads, I want to bring these guys down to earth, and wrestle in the mud with them.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that they've acquired this power of numbers, and both of them in their own way, and we need to either band together or, express ourselves as a crowdsourced, body to put pressure on them.
That's true, and things like IBPA and IPNE and other groups like that, they band together towards a common goal. They can make that happen.
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap up with just plugging IPNE again. We're an affiliate of the Independent Book Publishers Association, which is the national organization. There's about 23 different affiliates, and we're the New England one. We cover 6 states out here. And it's a great way to get your voice into that mix, I think, and to get the knowledge that you need to produce good, marketable books that do compete with the traditional publishers. So get that information. So we have some book shows coming up that you can participate in, and we have a catalog that you can advertise in. It goes, your ad runs in 2 issues, and I would just highly recommend being involved. These shows are really a lot of fun, and get to talk to all sorts of bookstores and everything next week, and really looking forward to that. So, Laura, what do you got going on?
Tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time is the Writing Biz, and subject is going to be financing your publishing adventure with Stephanie Sims. Stephanie Sims is a very well-known, I believe she's a former hedge fund manager. She's done all kinds of things, and she is going to help us kind of weed our way through the different options you have for publishing your book and how we can make
goodinklings.com is where they can get the link to that, or
no, at thewritingbiz.com.
Writingbiz.com. Thewritingbiz.com. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
And
well,
then it'll be on YouTube, Google+, and then I also release it as a podcast.
Nice. We are going to put some of the links we talked about in the event page, and I've already put a couple of them in. But Larry, thank you so much for your insight. I just, you have that kind of mind that's always questioning and exploring things. So I knew you'd be a good person to talk about this.
Well, I
really actually know a lot more about it than I did before.
Well, thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah,
and thanks, Laura.
Take care, everyone. Tune in next Tuesday at 12 for the next edition of Indie Office Hours. Talk to you soon. Bye.